It's time for MacBreak Weekly. Andy, Alex, and Jason are all here. I'm here, back east in Rhode Island, and we're going to talk about, of course, the Vision Pro. More details about the buying experience. Apple wins an Emmy. One Emmy, but an Emmy. We'll talk about that. And don't buy AppleCoin, whatever they tell you. All that coming up and a lot more next on MacBreak Weekly. This show is brought to you by Cisco Meraki. Without a cloud-managed network, businesses inevitably fall behind. Experience the ease and efficiency of Meraki's single platform to elevate the place where your employees and customers come together. Cisco Meraki maximizes uptime and minimizes loss to digitally transform your organization. Meraki's intuitive interface, increased connectivity, and multi-site management keep your organization operating seamlessly and securely wherever your team is. Let Cisco Meraki's 24/7 available support help your organization's remote, on-site, and hybrid teams always do their best work. Visit meraki.cisco.com/twit.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 904, recorded Tuesday, January 16th, 2024. Workshopping the Camel's Nose. This episode of MacBreak Weekly is brought to you by Melissa, the data quality experts. All data expires up to 25% per year. For over 38 years, Melissa has helped companies harness the value of their customer data to drive insight, maintain data quality, and support global intelligence. Flexible to fit into any business model, Melissa verifies addresses for more than 240 countries to ensure only valid billing and shipping addresses enter your system. Focus your spending where it matters most. Melissa offers free trials, sample codes, and flexible pricing, an ROI guarantee, and unlimited technical support to customers all around the world. Download the free Melissa Lookups app on Google Play or the App Store. No sign-up is required. Melissa has achieved the highest level of security status available by gaining FedRAMP authorization. Now, that's good news. Melissa's solutions and services are GDPR and CCPA compliant and meet SOC 2 and HIPAA high trust standards for information security management. Make sure your customer contact data is up to date. Get started today with 1,000 records cleaned for free at melissa.com/twit. That's melissa.com/twit. It's time for MacBreak Weekly, the show we cover the latest news from Apple. And we are here in the snow-burdened mid-central New England coast. I don't know. What do you call it, Andy? Andy Anako's just down the road a piece. We had snow overnight.
We call it the Boston, Providence, Worcester, Nashville Metroplex.
Corridor. First snow in 2 years in New York City, which is interesting. In fact, there's not a lot of snow anymore. When I grew up in Providence, I'm back here visiting Mom. There was snow. You know, you get snow in the winter, and this is the first snow of the winter, and maybe the only snow of the winter.
Yeah, we're still holding in for like February, which is usually like the shiv of winter in New England.
Speaking of shivs, it's now raining and it's going to freeze, and then we're going to have some fun. Yes, kids, it's going to be a blast. 34 degrees in Cranston. Also with us, hello, Andrew from WGBH in Boston. Also with us, Jason Snell. He's back. I'm at Mom's now, and he's home.
That's right. We traded places. Now I am in the North Bay, 55 degrees and rainy here. So, you know, the usual.
I miss California. When you get out here, you realize that we're spoiled. We really are spoiled. It is slushy and gray, and you have to wear a big, heavy coat, and, you know.
I like that. Whatever else you might be able to say, pro or con, about MacBreak, our hosts are really good to their moms.
Yes, that's
they
true.
Visit.
You and I know your mom's passed, but you were when you helped her. You moved in with her, I think, didn't you, to take care of her?
I was her caregiver for like the last year.
Yeah, that's really sweet. Yeah, Mom is in a assisted living, and she doesn't really know where she is. So, but hi, Mom, I'm in your house now. Also with us, Mr. Alex Lindsay, officehours.global. How's your mom?
My mom is doing great.
Good.
so we there's a clan that all lives in one area, so everyone kind of takes care of everybody, but my mom's still still doing pretty well. And
She's doing better than the Steelers. Let's put it that way.
well, we didn't have a high expectation there. I mean, we were just glad to be there. Like, it was kind of like, I was like, let's see how they do. Like my hopes weren't dashed there. I was hopeless going into it. Just kind of like, well, let's see if it's fun to watch, and that's all.
It was fun to watch, not for the Steelers fans probably, but it was fun to watch.
Yeah, a lot more fun than for the Cowboys. I mean, that was a brutal game.
They got spanked. And that means, of course, that come Sunday, we're going to have a split household because we have a Green Bay Packer fan in the home. And the Niners, of course, are beloved as well. Yeah. So I don't know what it's
it was yesterday was a bad day for Pennsylvania teams, Eagles and the
those poor Eagles too.
And the Steelers took it.
We're talking sports ball, kids. Don't worry about it. You don't need to know. It's not important.
It's the end of the Belichick era. We knew it was going to come someday, but still it hurts, doesn't it? Our phone lines are open.
When I'm driving down Route 93 through Foxborough, I waved a little salute to Billy. Mr. Belichick, I salute you as I drove by Gillette Stadium.
I imagine we're all wearing our hoodies at half mast here. The strings are halfway down.
I cut the sleeves off my sweatshirt in his honor.
And you imagine him looking back going, nah. Okay.
Yeah, he didn't care. I don't care. He doesn't care.
When we gonna lose Mr. Kraft? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, no kidding. No, I'm gonna tell you.
He's still down in Florida, getting some relief down there, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
our phone lines are still open. We've still got a few slots left.
Sports Talk Radio here, WEEI. So, let's talk about something that our audience cares about. The Vision Pro. I can order it Friday. I'll tell you. I was on the fence. I was on the cusp, as you probably know. I'm glad, Jason, you're going to get it, and I'm glad, Alex, you're going to get it. And I was like really reluctant with the $3,500. I asked my wife. She said, you can get it, but you have to return it. I said, I don't know if I can return it. And then Mark Gurman says, and by the way, before you go in, you take your iPhone and you scan your face so that they're ready with your special knitted band, just your right size, and the face plate, the sweat plate, just the right size. And then you bring in your glasses. I was worried I was going to have to go to my optometrist and get my prescription, but no, they put it in a special machine, and then they make the Zeiss lenses to fit them, and only $149 extra, and they do this whole thing. And then you have to sit through a 25-minute tour. And I said, oh, that's it. I'm not buying it. I don't want, that was the little thing that put me over the edge. I'm
totally with you. I can maybe find $3,500, but 20 minutes of small talk. No.
I don't think it's going to be mandatory. I think these are separate things, but
Micah was asking that on Ask the Tech Guy. Can you just get up and say, no, I'm good?
Yeah, you can. No, this is more of it's less of a sales as part of the transaction and more of you coming in and wanting to try it out and see if you want to buy it.
So it's 25 minutes is really for the prospective buyer, not for the new owner.
Yeah, it's a 30-minute slot. So Mark got some of it right. He got some of it wrong. He has retail contacts just like I do. It's going to be 20 minutes in the headset. I think that's the goal, is 20 minutes in the headset. And you can imagine that turning this around where you're going to have to scan the face, scan the eyes, the glasses prescription, pop in, get lenses from the back, pop them in, bring it out. That's going to take a little bit of time, and they want you in and out in 30 minutes. So I think it's about 20 minutes of headset time. And in terms of what you will do in that, you'll have it's 1-to-1. So like everybody who goes through this process will have an Apple employee there guiding them and only them. And they're going to have a little iPad where they can see what you're doing, and they'll step you through it. And this is the stuff that they brought people from the stores into Cupertino, this week, last week, and I think maybe the week before. And they've been doing training and then sending them back to stores to train everybody else to follow the script and do this demo, which feels to me, having heard about it and read about it, it's basically a cut down version of the demo that all of us who got the demo in June got. It's very similar to that. A lot of the same footage, just a little bit shorter, because that was more like half an hour, and they are trying to get the whole process in a 30-minute slot so that they can, put up these reservations every 30 minutes and move people in and out. And even so, that's going to be pretty limiting, right? Like how many people are going to be doing demos? How many devices are they going to have? Those slots are probably going to fill up pretty fast, but I don't think they're mandatory or anything, but they're putting a lot of effort. I mean, that is a lot of training and flying people to Cupertino and building this entire script in order to get people to experience it. And I think it's because how else, you can't just pick it up and look at it, right? It's not like an iPhone or an iPod or anything like that. You really kind of have to wear it in order to understand what it even is. So that's what they're doing.
And I have to admit, when I'm buying stuff, a lot of times I have pretty good relationships with companies, and I'll end up with them over Zoom or something else, like looking at their product, going through 30 minutes of them explaining how, well, what about this, and how do I do this, and how do I do, and it speeds up. It saves you a lot of time in the future because of a lot of frustration of not knowing that that's what that button actually did. I think that what I did when I got the Google Glass, I think it was 15 or 20 minutes. I think it was like a solid, it was probably 20-minute visit that I had down in San Francisco, where they do much of the same thing. They show you, make sure that you're attached to your account. They make sure that you got it on, that you can see it, that you understand how to do the X, Y, and Z, that you understand how to do all the bits and pieces. So I don't think that Apple's doing it much longer than what Glass did. And it's something that it's very easy to step over something and then be complaining to your friends or online going, I bought this stupid thing and it doesn't do the thing. And I think they're trying to avoid the forehead slaps of, you just got to turn the dial.
Yeah. I mean, that's not, I wouldn't say it's discouraging, but it's not particularly encouraging that they're not. I can see how they would definitely want to make sure that the fit is correct, because comfort is going to be like at least 40% of the ball game here. So they want to make sure that they fit you with exactly the right one, that if you need optical inserts, that they're getting you the right prescription. I think there's also a requirement that you have to have a valid, like, recent prescription. You can't give the one that you got in college like 20 years ago or whatever. Yeah. But you would like to think that, nope, just take it out of the, okay, it fits great. Okay, that's good. We are confident that you will be able to figure this out. We've given you enough supplemental materials that the onboarding process is as good as it is on any iPhone. I mean, I think part of what you went through with Google Glass was also making you feel like a Glass Explorer and a concierge experience. And I remember getting mine set up in New York City, and like there were free beverages. There was like a little it
was nice. It was a nice experience.
So I don't know. Again, I don't think that's necessarily a bad indication, but it's like for $3,500, that people should expect some personal attention to make sure that you walk out of there having the best experience you can possibly have.
Yeah, for sure. And I have a little detail about the vision stuff, because it's kind of confusing. So Apple can't provide you like perfect lenses. You need to buy those from Zeiss, and they will be shipped to you separately. You will not be able to walk out of the Apple Store with
they
those.
Have a limited range of. So they're going
to have a lot in stock for the demo, but those aren't for you to take away. My understanding is that they will let you walk out of the store if you are somebody who needs a minor adjustment with what they're basically calling readers. So the idea of like a little basic +1, +2, +3, like you might get in a pair of swim goggles or reading glasses. But if you have to go beyond that level of adjustment to a prescription, you'll get a demo with as close as they can get to your prescription in the store, but they can't sell you prescription eyewear, right? That has to come from Zeiss, and that's a separate order.
And what you're saying is if your prescription is negative 4.75, you're going to need to have someone send it to you, asking for a friend.
What I'm saying is you could go into the store and they will probably have something close to that. It might be -5, right? Yeah. But you're not going to walk out of the store with something that you can use. You're going to have to make that purchase, which means some people are going to leave the store with a product that they can't use.
Yeah, or you'll have to wear your contacts.
I also heard you wear your contacts. I've also heard that you can use it with glasses. It just isn't ideal. And it's kind of uncomfortable, but you could do it for like in the short term.
And you can do that with Oculus, right? Oculus and other things like that now. It's super annoying. Like it's
I mean, I bought the lenses, but I could use it with my glasses. This is going to be a tighter fit than the Oculus Quest, but I think you'll probably be able to do it. We'll see. But anyway, so that's going to be one of those little quirks. And I wonder how it's going to work. I assume that you'll be able to order this thing on Friday, and then Apple will immediately either place your order or kick you to Zeiss to do that order and coordinate it in some way so that they both come to you. Either, if not together, then maybe it'll be like an iPhone case where you'll get the inserts and you'll be like, yay, I got them. And then the thing isn't there for another 2 weeks. That might happen.
I do want. Has anybody heard anything about how they're going to be handling like demos and these test fittings to make sure that in an age of COVID and also during the height of cold and flu season, that you can put this thing on your face to try it out without any worry that you're going to be coughing and hacking for the next 4 weeks?
So they take it into the back and sanitize it between sessions. So what happens is it all gets built. So they scan your face. It's exactly what happened to me in June. They scan your face. They get your glasses prescription. They've got a little prescriptionometer thing that they can drop your glasses in to figure out what it is and get as close as they can in the back. And then there are elves, right? I don't know who those people are. There are elves in the back, and they have the lot of them that they're presumably charging, or they're swapping out the batteries and charging the other batteries, and they're popping in the magnetic inserts and they're resetting it to its demo state. And then a runner presumably just kind of brings it out to you. So as part of that process, I imagine they are presumably thoroughly sanitizing it, but it's all happening behind the scenes. So they will have the opportunity to do a wipe down and whatever else they need to do. It's not something that's like laying out on the table all day, I guess is the way I would put it.
And I'm sure that they're building something relatively custom. I know for us, you can wipe them down. Also, UV. There's a lot of UV systems that you just turn them on and it flips it up, and it doesn't take very long. It actually degrades the surface over time, but they can kill everything on it pretty quickly.
These are the demo units.
So how, if I didn't want to buy it but I wanted to try it, they're going to do both, right?
You make an appointment.
Okay.
And then for that 30-minute slot, and then you'd come in and they'd do the measuring and all of that, and then the runner would come out.
As if you were going to buy it,
sir. And then you and your helper would sit there and do the 20-minute demo together, and they would say that just what happened to me in June. They'd be like, now we're going to set up the look at all the dots to do the eye tracking, and now here's the button that you press to bring up the apps, and now why don't you click on this one, and here's the gesture to use, and like going through that whole kind of walk-in process where they show you there's like the spatial photos. There's a little demo of that in the Photos app that we also got. They'll show you a video clip from a movie that's in 3D. We got Avatar. It sounds like the poor suckers at the Apple Store are going to get the Super Mario Brothers movie instead. Sorry. I'm sure it'll be very spectacularly 3D, right? Whatever it is. And then, they'll go through that process of the 20-minute demo that you're guided by your guide, which on one level, like, I think even if you don't want to buy it, I'm interested to see how busy those are going to be, because people are going to want to try it, right? Like they're going to just be able to talk about it and say, "Oh, I saw that Apple thing."
Will there be pressure
give you
to
20
buy
minutes.
it? You're making an appointment not to buy, right? It's clearly an appointment to try.
Yeah,
but will there be at the end now? If you give me your credit card, you can have this.
I'm sure they'll offer.
Yeah. Okay.
But I don't think it's like you're test driving a car.
Apple doesn't do pressure. It's like test driving a car. Yeah.
I think that's part of what the face scan is about, to try to see if you look a little bit shifty.
Apple announced today in a press release that they're going to be, when the Vision Pro ships and arrives in your door at February 2nd, you'll have Disney Plus available, ESPN, Major League Baseball, PGA Tour. You'll have Max, Discovery Plus, Amazon Prime Video. These are all apps. Paramount Plus, Peacock, Pluto TV, Tubi, Fubo, and Mubi. I don't know what that is.
That was a lot of syllables you just said.
Tubi, Tubo, Fubo,
Tubi, Fubo, and Mubi.
And Tutti Frutti. And all will be there.
Crunchyroll, Red Bull TV, IMAX, and TikTok. This is,
But
so those are to be purchased,
Netflix.
or those are apps. Not Netflix.
So those are all video streaming. They're either free or they're with subscription, but not Netflix.
And they say, but there will be browsers you could put on it, and you could watch Netflix in the browser, right?
Sure, but it is interesting because I wonder, like, if this becomes big, Netflix is going to want to offer like a tier that has 3D movies in it and stuff like that. But that's not here at present. Apple says though that I think every movie that you own on iTunes, if it's got a 3D version, you can watch the 3D version. So that's
so the Vision Pro does support 2D in a kind of a screen. Are they both in screens, or is the 3D more immersive?
I mean, for a 3D movie, it's just like in a movie theater. And in fact, what's interesting is the apps, like the Apple TV app, will have some very specific environments, like a movie theater that they've built an immersive environment in. Disney has its own immersive environments, which is really interesting. So Disney, there's a movie theater, but there's also like in Luke's speeder on Tatooine at the binary sunset. right, is one of theirs. So they got some bananas environments you can watch a movie in on a big screen, like you're at a movie theater.
Yeah.
Alex.
It does sound there's basically two places that they can put them. They can put them on the on a pane that's like a screen that's going to be in 3D, or they can put them into the space, which is the 180 experience. And so you can have a 180 experience where you get it's, and that can be in stereo as well. Or you can have it on the pane. Obviously, all the movies that, as Jason said, all the movies that have been released already will go into that 16:9 or 2:3:5 or whatever. But Apple is also, I believe in the press release, they said they're also delivering some things that are going to be in that dual 180 that are there, that are experiences within the prehistoric show that they did. They're going to have some interactive experiences inside of that.
Those are their immersive video, which is like a different category. And those are the 180-degree 8K camera thing where you're, that's spatial the one where you're like, you're suspended over a tightrope over a canyon and stuff like that. But also beyond the sizzle reel, that's where you're going to have that dinosaur documentary and some other content. And I assume that they are going to do more sports stuff there too, because Alex and I keep saying, MLS, it's going to happen.
It seems obvious that they're going to put up some, I think first VOD and then probably live, but the ability to do that will happen pretty quickly. I will say that if you're interested in 3D, if you ever liked 3D at all, a lot of people don't, but if you did, the 3D on a headset is dramatically better than the 3D that you ever saw in a theater.
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't still get over the fact that most of the time, most of the 3D movies that came out that weren't James Cameron are pretty bad as far as how they do 3D, because all they did was put people on planes. They just basically people out.
It's
and
like
put
3D comics in the old days. There's like 5 different planes, and you're on one of them or the other of them, and it's not.
So you're saying it's going to look like Speed Racer, is what you're saying?
Well, that's what all of those movies in theaters are generally 3D, and some of them are well done, and some of them are not. But they're not shot 3D. They're just 3D projections. Right. But there are a lot of them, and some of them are. Avatar is a good example. Amazing. I think the best example is Hugo, which is like, what if Martin Scorsese made a 3D movie? And the answer is he did. It's called Hugo, and it's really good, really good as a movie, but also as a 3D experience. So there are some great 3D movies out there, and the experience is so much better than in a movie theater wearing the stupid glasses. It is. So Alex said, if you like 3D, I'd say if you hate the 3D movie experience, you might like this. You might actually like it.
Yeah. Parenthetically, if you haven't seen Hugo, it's not just that it's, oh, wow, look, it's another 3D movie. Hey, look, Martin Scorsese decided to play around with 3D. It's part of the storytelling that he couldn't get away with not using every single trick that was possible using technology in movie storytelling.
And yet it's kind of an ode, as I remember, to the movies, right? It's
absolutely that's exactly why. It's like it was interesting. I was looking at the Walt Disney Company's press release, and it really is like everything that interests you about Disney and everything that disgusts you about Disney is in this press release. Starting from the title, Disney Plus on Apple Vision Pro ushers in a new era of storytelling, innovation, and immersive entertainment, magically transforming user space. Like, okay, you're selling me a cruise, you're selling me like a subscription. It's a good movie, I'm gonna enjoy it, but please don't try to like hit me don't try to get me drunk on Disney heart-touching magic. But it does seem as though they're setting themselves up to be like everybody's going to be heading to Disney Plus to really experience the 3D entertainment aspects of this, including, like as Jason said, just the idea of like I'm working on the scare floor from Pixar's
Monsters Inc.
Monsters Inc. I'm working at an Avengers Tower. It's like, okay, that doesn't give me the whole $3,500 worth of value, but that's at least $130 for a lot of people. Also,
mentioning Disney, a lot of the current modern 3D animated movies, one of the advantages of them is they are animated in a 3D space, and while they have to do a 3D version where they render it with 2 cameras instead of 1, and it's not easy for them to do it, but those movies are more real 3D in the sense that they were rendered in a 3D space. And so when you watch a 3D Pixar movie, it's spectacular. And I'll mention also another one of my favorites in 3D is the Into the Spider-Verse movies. Those are playing with not only those movies, if you haven't seen them, are playing with everything. Like they're playing with comic book halftone dot patterns and printing systems as part of the film experience, which is bananas. But in addition, the 3D version is playing with depth on top of it. So there are, I hate 3D movies. I mean, let me say, I hate 3D movies, but there are some 3D movies that are spectacularly good as 3D movies. Just most of them aren't.
And the ones that are really good. I mean, the Avatar, whether you like Avatar or not, the Avatar movies are just incredible,
immaculate,
like amazing 3D experiences that are, that kind of, I just didn't. And the hardest part was that Avatar came out and we all thought, well, this is the future because it just looked amazing. And then it was just a whole bunch of bad movies and one after the other. One thing that I haven't seen that I hope to see now is The Hobbit, because I think they shot The Hobbit in stereo, or parts of it at least in stereo. So it'll be interesting to see. Yeah.
So for those of us not purchasing a Vision Pro, I think this is your opportunity to gird your loins, prepare yourself,
get ready
for a bombardment of FOMO. In fact, during the football playoffs this weekend, there was this I thought was really interesting. Apple had its Vision Pro ads, and really what it was a series of clips from Star Wars and Geordi putting on his visor, a bunch of people putting on visors to show you that, you see, you've always wanted
Snoopy and his pilot helmet.
You've always wanted a helmet, a nerd helmet, and now you can get one. And so I think there's going to be this real feeling of, I'm missing out. Oh man, this is the right way to see Avatar.
That ad is interesting. It's first off, it's a reference to the original iPhone ad, which they did during the Academy Awards, and they rolled this thing out during the national championship for college football. And it's movie clips. So the original iPhone was at the Oscars, and it was a bunch of movie clips of people answering the phone. And this one is a bunch of people putting like little headgear on.
Right.
I think though, as a piece of marketing, it is exactly what you might expect for a product that most people aren't going to want to buy yet, or even be able to buy yet, in that it's really, they even say it, get ready. It's really more like, did you know? Because most people don't even know. Most people don't watch, sad as it is, MacBreak Weekly.
Yeah,
they're not even paying attention to the fact that Apple's doing a headset. So these ads are sort of like, yes, Apple is doing a headset. It's the future. It's going to be cool. Get ready. And I think they are doing that gently because they want people to know it exists, but they also know that most people are going to say, oh, interesting, $3,500, forget it, right? That's okay, but they do want there to be awareness that this thing is happening. So it was a light touch, but I think maybe the right touch for this, because a hard sell doesn't make sense right now. It just doesn't at all.
No, the message is simply the future is here and we're doing it, and you will eventually want one of these.
You will eventually want one.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, also they're pretty safe with an ad like that with the customers they're going to get in the first year. If this really were a mass market thing like the iPhone, you would have to be saying, please, you know how awesome, awesome 3D works, like in the movies and science fiction you've been thinking about for the past 40, 50 years. This will not be that. It will be cool, but don't think that you're going to be able to walk all the way around your grandchildren as you live video conference with them, and that you can push a ball from your side of the sofa to their side of the sofa. It's going to be, you're going to have a window through which you can watch Star Wars movies, and they'll be still very disappointing if they're the new ones, but they'll be in 3D, so they'll be that.
And if you are, as many of our listeners are, at least 30%, not in the U.S., there is good news. You can fear missing out as well soon. In your country, they're going to roll out international versions, according to Ming-Chi Kuo, before WWDC. Not sure what countries they'll come out in. Right now it's U.S. only, right?
I think they said UK, Canada, and then maybe South Korea or Japan. I mean, they're looking at them, and it's the ones that you'd sort of expect. I realized when we were when I was hearing about and getting the info about the Zeiss lenses that there's a regulatory story here, right? Part of the issue with the rollout is not just limited to content and limited to the number of devices they have to sell. It's that they have to be, for the eye stuff, they actually have to be in alignment with the laws of any country they go into where they can offer prescriptions, right? So that there is actually a regulatory reason why it might take them a while to roll it out, but it sounds like they're going to be real aggressive. They're not going to hold this for the US for the whole year or something.
Which makes sense.
They're capturing biometric information too, so.
Yeah,
That's,
exactly.
Oh, there's a privacy issue. Yeah.
Yeah.
It does make sense if this is a quasi-developer edition. Look, they're developers. Some of the best developers are not in the U.S.
Yeah.
So you've got to make it, somehow make it available.
For sure.
Are there nerd helmets that have prescription lenses? Does Meta offer prescription? I think they do, don't they?
Yeah, but they have a partner in the U.S. It's Zenny Optical. I don't know about other countries.
Okay.
So that's I spent for $50 instead of $150, of course, because Apple for my Quest 3
And were they
inserts.
True to your prescription, or were they?
Yeah.
Only vaguely true to you?
No, they were true to my prescription.
Okay.
They nailed the glasses prescription perfectly, and they look great. And it's and such a relief not to wear glasses inside that thing. Oh, it's the worst.
Did you just send them some prescription? You sent the prescription to them, and they just sent it back.
Yeah, my provider, my vision provider, lets me download a PDF of my current subscription, and I literally attached to that to Zenny, and they sent me the inserts.
Right.
Okay, well, Friday's the day. You get up at 8 a.m. Eastern, 5 a.m. Pacific. And do you think it'll be hard?
They'll all be gone by 5:05.
Do you think that'll be the case? That'll be like if you don't get up at that hour?
I don't know. I think it's I want to say that Alex is right, but I don't know. I think it might take a few hours. I think it will sell out. Whatever.
It's not so much selling out. It's the first getting them near the February 2nd. It'll just start stretching out. Like it'll just
the real constraint is half hour.
June.
The real constraint is half-hour appointments in Apple stores.
Yeah, but I don't think they're mandatory. I think those are sales appointments. And if you already buy it, then you bought it. You can just get it.
You don't have to go to the store to buy it?
I don't think so. No.
Oh, okay.
No, you can scan in the Apple Store app. So you can scan your face in the Apple Store app and then order it and then drop in your prescription and get that from Zeiss. And my understanding is, and then that's it and you get it.
So there was a rumor last year that you would have to go to the store to get it. That's not going to be the case.
I don't think that's not what I've heard, but I'm not 100% on that. But I think that they want to use the 20 minutes in the store or the 30-minute appointment in the store as a sales tool. And if you've already bought it, then they
don't need to
take it. We'll take your $3,500, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And of course, if they sell out next week, that doesn't mean that you've lost your opportunity. Obviously, they're going to be basically shipping blocks of tens of thousands at a time as they manufacture them, and also to try to keep an eye on that sort of stuff. Also, I think that I wonder what Apple's plans are for all of the returns that are definitely going to be coming from people who just wanted to rock and roll with it for a couple of weeks, or who were going to take a flutter on it but then didn't really like it. Are they going to be in a refurb channel, or are they simply going to remanufacture them and rebox them as new? Replace anything that might have come in contact with the skin, but the unit itself will be restored to brand new condition and basically put right back in the retail channel.
I think it'll have to be refurbed. I mean, if it comes back from someone, I think they have to put it that way. But I think that. And I don't think that they'll necessarily sell out. I think they're just going to keep pushing that date out. Like that date will just keep on. Like you can pick it up in December. That kind of thing. Because they probably understand their sales channel pretty effectively. And Apple tends to be fairly conservative. Most of the time, when I get something that's been extended out, I often get it somewhere from a couple days or a couple weeks earlier than they said.
Under promise and over deliver.
Yeah.
All right. Well, get ready, kids. And Alex, you're still on the hook. Yeah, I'm right. Friday.
I got it all saved up. I'm all ready to go.
Saved up? All right.
I'm good. We'll
Jason, have you? Happens. Okay, this is the warrant canary now. Hey, Jason, are you getting one?
Hey, Leo. I don't know if I'm getting one or not. So I'm still in. I am hopeful, but I don't. I have not had anybody at Apple say, we're going to give you one.
Have you been a good reviewer, Jason? You've been a good boy.
It's always the call that, hi, will you be available for a Zoom call like on Wednesday at XX date?
Is that what they do? You get
often you get an email saying that they'll call you. Because nobody can trace the call, right?
Yes.
It's coming from inside the house.
Here's an onion link to click down for the press release.
All right, that's you might as well get used to it for the next 6 months. That's our Vision Pro segment for the week, and it will be a while though. It won't be next week that you'll get one. It takes this is unusual, right? With the iPhone, you can order on Friday and then get it the next Friday, but no, we have to. You're going to have to wait.
I will say that I am going to be watching a lot of specific tech channels on YouTube for just, hey, and here's something we first talked about at CES. Here's the new Rabbit AI device, but I'm gonna be looking to see if there are like red marks like above the bridge of their nose on the sides to say that they were playing with their NDA unit. They had to take it off to film a video, and now they're putting it back on again afterward.
Okay, I'm pinching my nose right now.
I am interested in going to a conference where I'm going through the expo, like we've covered the expo, and just shoot it all with
3D.
With my,
Wouldn't that be
3D.
cool?
I'm going to do it with my phone. I'm going to do it next week.
Is it better if you do it with a headset?
The headset will be. I think the headset will have a better interaxial
wider,
distance.
the
it'll be closer to your interocular, the interaxial between it. So it'll be less simulated and probably look more 3D. But I'm going to test it with the phone next week at NAMM, and then when we get to NAB, I'll probably shoot a bunch of stuff.
Speaking of NAMM, one of the spatial video demos is of Alicia Keys in her studio recording songs. So if you're an Alicia Keys fan, that will be one of the demos. And
it should look really good if it's the same studio that I've seen before.
It'd be,
it's a really nice small studio that will look good in 3D. Like she's got this little place in New York and in Chelsea.
Nice. All right. One thing you won't get, according to 9 to 5 Mac, according to rumors, and it's really not as much of a rumor because it seems like they've actually taken it off the website, is the open sky environment where you can lie on your back and look at the stars in your Vision Pro. That is, for some reason, they've taken off the Vision Pro webpage. The phrase, magically replace your ceiling with a clear open sky, has been replaced by turn your room into a personal movie theater with the cinema environment. So, I don't know. Probably that's coming.
That's probably good news. That if that was the only thing that anybody can spot that they promised would have delivered, and it's not as though that was like a selling point other thing. It was cool. I'm sure that it had its champions inside of Apple, but that was one of those things where we need bandwidth for actually making the damn thing work. So so 2 weeks from Friday is February 2nd. People will start getting them. Again, gird yourself for FOMO. Because there'll be that feeling we'll all have. Gosh, I wish I'd ordered one, but I think I'd encourage.
I think the hard part is that you do have time, but you may have a lot of time. I think the reason that I'm so focused on it at 5 a.m. is because I'm afraid that if I get any kind of FOMO and wish I jumped in, it'll be 6 to 9 months away.
You'll be sad.
That's because there's just not that many that are going to be available.
Yeah, no, please, everybody should definitely have like proper expectations that there are going to be some features that work really, really well as you had hoped. There are going to be some features that you're like, okay, 1.0, let's keep the faith.
What's the over-under on YouTubers who are thrilled with it and are gravely disappointed with it?
I think it'll be cooler to do videos about what a travesty this is, and I think that's what a lot of the lesser. I think that anybody who has a proper perspective will have a balance between this is a real product that Apple is really selling in their stores and they're charging a real amount of money for it. So we have to evaluate it as not as though this is an experiment or a demo or something that you have to go into a suite at CES in order to take a look. So they have to review it seriously while at the same time acknowledging that this is the 1.0 of the thing. So I think if you rewind back to the iPhone, there were a lot of people who very correctly said that there are a lot of features that I really miss off my BlackBerry, that I really miss off of my Windows phone. I really think this is really too slow. I can't get XYZ. I can't tether. However, that said, here are things it's a brand new thing, and here are the things that it's doing that no one else can possibly do. But there are also going to be the people that either don't get it or they're in such curmudgeon mode as a brand that they can't possibly say that this was a very, very interesting product. I don't think I'm not going to encourage anybody to spend $3,500 for it expecting anything more than an interesting version 1.0 experience, but it's an interesting experience.
Yeah. Boy, and that argues for us getting one just because I think we could do a good job of being fair and balanced about it.
Exactly.
But that's part of the problem with it is you can't buy it and share it so much, right? It's
right.
People around the studio said, "Oh, get it, Leo," and then we could try it. Well, no, because it won't fit you or whatever.
Yeah, there's
Or
a
will
guest
it?
mode, and I think you might be able to buy. I mean, you could buy other inserts and swap them,
Okay.
and maybe change the light seal. And I think there might be ways to do it, but it is meant to be a one person.
It's yours.
I think the guest
Yeah.
mode will be like good enough for people to sort of like try it out at your house. But I think if you had two people who wanted to use it regularly, it might be a challenge. It's going to be logged into one like Apple ID and things like
Right.
that. So like you could do it, but it's not made to be a 2-person device.
Yeah. Like,
That-
and the
that's-
same's true of the iPad. So
Yeah.
that's okay.
Yeah, that's a positive and a negative. Like Michael's always borrowing my Oculus Pro because he can, right? And I'm always finding it in his room and I have to put it back on the charger. But you see, he wouldn't be able to with the Vision Pro. So, but that's a positive, but it's also a negative because it's a $3,500 device that only you can wear. So,
Yeah.
all right. Well, more to come, but we're going to move on. Let's take a little time out here and just say hello to our fabulous panel, Jason Snell from sixcolors.com, from officehours.global, the wonderful Alex Lindsay. This is a real challenge for you, John Ashley, our producer. I should pause a little bit. And now we go to Andy and Notco, WGB.
Oh.
Nice dissolve.
Oh, did I just ruin it by moving? Sorry.
Yeah, no moving, please. All right, let's see what else. Oh, Apple got a victory. A loss. Oh, I can't figure this out. The Supreme Court has declined to rule on the Apple and Epic. Both appealed to the Supreme Court. Both unhappy with the result of their lawsuit. The lower court ruling stands. The Supreme Court has decided, yeah, you guys, you just fight it out. Which means that Apple is now going to have to allow companies like Amazon. I was just trying to buy an Amazon book the other day in the Kindle app. Can't. Amazon will now say, to buy this book, you can go to Amazon.com. Shall I click a link for you? Because the court said that Apple has to do that. That is not exactly like the worst thing that ever happened to Apple, but the Supreme Court has upheld that ruling by not ruling.
So
The old
steering-
wink, wink, nudge, nudge that was like, oh, you must go be somewhere else that we can't tell you about. And now it'll be like, well, yeah, you can go here if you want,
Yeah.
which is not, I mean, Apple has built this. It is as limited in scope as possible. Not that useful, but better than nothing.
It is the smallest possible loss for Apple.
Yeah, they had won, I think, 9 out of the 10 terms. And so the thing that Tim Sweeney's upset about, of course, is that there isn't, they didn't go back and look at the idea of forcing a second store, which is what he wanted in the United States. Of course, that's moving forward in Europe.
They're going to get it in Europe.
So they're probably going to get it in Europe. The question is whether Apple will just fork Europe and not necessarily. If they fork Europe in Europe, it'll make it really complicated for larger developers to do both.
So Gurman's saying in Bloomberg that Apple is going to split in the coming weeks. Apple's going to split the App Store in two. I don't. He says Apple's gearing up to make changes to the App Store in the EU to comply with the Digital Markets Act. Apparently, his sources say Apple's planning to roll out adjustments, splitting off the App Store in the EU. Oh, I see. So there'll be an EU App Store. That's the
I don't think they're not going to
EU
do
version and the rest of the world version.
They're not going to have the EU drive what they're doing with the rest of the world. So they're just going to just say, well, you guys get your own. And that what that does is it really makes it painful for developers, because it means that developing the store makes developing your own store much higher risk, in that area, because it's a much smaller market.
But the people who are really upset about this, the people who are forking over an enormous amount of money, they're going to say, you know what, it'll cost us X hundreds of thousands of dollars to retool for a secondary app store specifically in the EU, but here's how much we can make back by not having to fork over that much money.
It'll be interesting.
It'll be interesting. Yeah.
It'll be interesting research. If it's obviously if it's a huge success, then we'll know, and if it's not, Apple will let us know.
Yeah. And I'm sure part of Apple's thinking was that this was not a whole bunch of like drunken jerks who have it in for Apple, who were doing this just to be mean, and no other government anywhere in the world is ever going to put this kind of restriction on us. I think that they were partially acknowledging that we're probably going to see some form of this in the US. We're probably going to see some form of this in Australia and Japan. We are just going to have to make sure that we're going to change our architecture, change our infrastructure, change our business structure so that we can roll out different versions of the App Store with restrictions as needed by local laws.
So I wonder, though, if doing this in the EU opens the door for it to happen in other markets, to opens the door for the FTC then to say,
oh, yeah,
well, look, you can do this.
Yeah.
Maybe you should do it here.
As soon as Apple does this and opens up side loading and all those things after saying that they're going to destroy everything, assuming they don't destroy everything and ruin everybody's lives, it makes it so much easier for literally every other organization who's regulating countries around the world to say, we want that, do that. And like, there's no defense at that point from Apple saying they can't do it because they already did it.
Right.
And you may see a whole cascade of laws and regulations altered to basically model after the EU to force Apple to open that, flip that switch for them too. I feel like the floodgates will open.
It's the camel's nose up your kimono, as they say. No,
well,
I don't think anyone says that.
As soon as
I don't even know if we should have said that.
Yeah. But it's always fun when like regulations like these come into effect. We get to see that, okay, Apple, you said the world would come to an end if they opened up the App Store. We are going to go to the mountaintop with our tunics and our Bibles, and we're going to wait for the world to end at 12:41 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time, because you're saying the world is going to end. And then when the world doesn't end, and they can see that, well, no, there was no really detectable or traceable increase in hardship to users, nor did it really confuse people to have multiple app stores. That's going to basically put Apple and any company on a different kind of footing.
The hard part is they're going to be exactly the way the Google app split has happened, which is that nobody uses it. Like, it's just, that nobody bothers. And I think that's the biggest risk for a second app store, is just that no one's actually going to use it. The second risk is, while you may be right that nothing happens and everything else, in the next 2 years, if there's any kind of security breach or anything that someone takes advantage of in the second app, I guarantee that Apple will make sure we all know about it. So, so 100%. there'll be an incredible amount of "I told you so."
Apple warns European users about malware found in rogue side-loaded app. Don't let it happen to you. Turn off that feature that we warned you. Because first off, to turn it on, you'll go through that screen that says, if you allow this, you may die. An app may kill you. And then they'll put out the press release that's saying, we told you, turn it off before you die. And yeah, they will absolutely do that if they have the opportunity, because that's their goal, is to minimize this as much as possible.
Yeah. And I think that there's going to be, over the next couple of years, I wouldn't be surprised if there's another class of developer that Apple develops, that Apple rolls out, that is, the developers that are developing exclusively for the Apple Store, as opposed to developing for the things. And it's just a matter of when you get it and whether they pick up the phone, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of things like that may happen as well.
All right, we'll watch with interest to see if the world ends or not, or if that camel's nose gets any farther.
Good luck with that metaphor. I mean, we're
all just sitting there, just like,
I'm glad. I'm working on it.
I'm glad you believe in it.
I'm workshopping it. I'm workshopping it. Exactly.
This is why we don't allow people in the studio to record, because you got to break in new material for your Netflix special. Line where we're going to find out.
There is good news and bad news in this IDC report. Apple, since 2010. The last time a company not named Samsung was number one in smartphone sales was 2010. For 2023, it is Apple.
And I believe that before 2010, it was Nokia.
BlackBerry. Nokia.
BlackBerry was never very high, but I think it was Nokia was the big.
Because remember, it's global, right? So Nokia was huge all over the world. That's all you'd see. Yeah. But there's bad news too, which is the overall, according to IDC, the overall smartphone market has dropped last year 3.2%. They sold a mere 1.17 billion units. There's 7.5 billion people in the world, and they sold 1.17 billion units. Seems like a good market share.
It's okay. It's okay. Apparently, though, let's keep in mind this is an amazing statistic, because Apple doesn't play in a large section of the market.
Right.
Apple in the $600 and up smartphone market has 71% share, right? Like, Apple dominates at premium smartphones. It's kind of amazing to see that even when you roll in all of the, especially the places around the world that expensive smartphones are not popular because people can't afford them, that Apple has still got the, I'm a longtime Mac user. It's never about the market share, but it is kind of amazing to see this. I also think you said it, Leo, the smartphone market is amazing, right? This is the thing I keep coming back to is everybody's looking for the next smartphone. It's like, it will probably be quite a while before there is a product so universal
kind of penetration
and available across such a price range that everybody in the world wants it and buys one. Everybody buys one. And apparently everybody in the world buys a new one at least every 7 years if 1/7 of the world population bought a smartphone last year.
Apple's market share went up 0.7% year over year from 24% to 24.7%. But that's Samsung, which is number 2, is 16%. So Apple has a significantly larger market share, almost a quarter of the world market. Their growth year over year, 11.6%. Meanwhile, Samsung's growth, negative 10.9%. Now, tomorrow, Samsung's going to have their live Unplugged event. In fact, we're going to cover it 10 a.m. Pacific. Micah Sargent and I will be in studio doing that. And Apple, and of course, Samsung's going to announce an S24, and everybody kind of knows what they're going to announce. In fact, they've been offering pre-orders for a month, but they will also be pushing their AI capabilities and so forth. But they're playing, I guess, at this point, catch up. Xiaomi showed good growth, 22% growth year over year. They may end up being dominant next year because they're the big Chinese company. And a company I've never heard of called Transion, Transion, has 68.6% growth year over year. So there are 2 new companies coming, and that's the low end. That's the cheap phone. That's a market that Apple doesn't even compete in, really.
Yeah. And there's also that piece in the Wall Street Journal, I think today or yesterday, about Apple taking the rather odd step of offering really big discounts on the latest iPhones in China. This is ahead of the Lunar New Year.
Is it Couples Day that they Singles Day that they have huge sales? I might be getting the holiday wrong, but there's a big holiday in early February. That's a gift giving holiday in China, and that they're offering like $70 or $80, $90 discounts on handsets that they hadn't done before, and also they're also not offering them in other Asian countries that celebrate the same holiday. So the Wall Street Journal is basically couching this as this is how they're feeling some heat from Samsung. They're feeling some heat from Huawei, and that efforts to try to make Apple sound as though they're an untrustworthy foreign company might be starting to pay off because people are. It's some of the glow is starting to slip off of iPhone, and that they're seeing it in terms of like much less sales numbers. Hence the need to start discounting stuff and try to go more aggressively. I think you're right. I think it's Lunar New Year. Singles Day it's easy to remember because it's 11/11, lots of ones. Singles Day, or Bachelor's Day, but that is kind of their prime day in China in November. Lunar New Year. Am I in a bathrobe? No, I'm not, Shay. This is known as a sweater. You usually see me wear these very often, but it's cold here in New England. Do I look like does it look like it's a bathrobe? It's a cardigan.
It does look, that one specifically looks a little like a bathrobe.
It's a shawl. It's got a shawl collar.
It's weird. It's weird that we have to explain to some people that there are parts of the country, if not the world, in which it gets so cold that no, you know what? We're not going to try to make this shirt sleeve warm in here. We are, just as your parents used to say, just going to put on a sweater because otherwise.
Put on a sweater. It's 68 degrees on the thermostat. I can't afford.
I am wearing flannel pajamas underneath my pants, and I'm wearing like 3 layers on top here. Yes,
I found. I'm going through my closet and looking for a coat I can wear out here because I don't have, and I guess the last time I came out in the winter I have a LL Bean coat that goes down to below my knees. It looks like Lisa said, "You look like a pimp." I said, "No, this is called
pimp.
A winter,
a cozy pimp,
warm, cozy," and it is. It's flannel on the inside, so I don't know what pimp she's thinking, but I had to wear it. I'm going to leave that here. I don't think I need that.
I'm going to thank you once again for the Twit staff Christmas present of like, what was it, 5, 6, 7 years ago? That is one thick, warm hoodie. It becomes like my office and home uniform, like from December to March.
This year, I'm sporting Salt Hank hoodies. He has a whole series of hoodies that I'm wearing. Actually, that's what I brought out. I'm wearing those. No, this is not no, I'm not wearing a bathrobe. This is a cashmere sweater. Some executive changes at Apple. I did not know this. The mandatory retirement age for Apple directors is 75. Al Gore is now 75, as is James Bell. So they're retiring from the Apple board of directors.
Well, mandatory with an asterisk, right? Because there was another board member who's 75 who's still there, and their chairman is going to be 75 next year. But I think what's happening here is that they realized they had a whole bunch of people turning 75 in a short amount of time, and they want to cycle the boards more slowly than that. And I think that's smart. I think that's smart on their part to say, we realize we need to turn over the board, but I don't want to kick out 4 or 5 board members in a year. So they're going to make it. But like Levinson is the chairman, and he's there from Jobs era. And he turns 75 next year. So, I mean, clearly they're going to have board turnover in the next few years, and it will be interesting to see who the new board members are. Apple is unlike some tech companies. Apple has an independent board that is not Tim Cook and his cronies. It's this independently appointed board. And it'll be interesting to see how they change that. So they appointed one new board member, and they have board members leaving, and this is not the end of the story, because they will certainly lose another couple board members soon, probably next year, I would think.
Tim Cook has a board seat though, right?
I don't think so.
Yes. Nope,
is he?
He does. He's on the board.
He's not the chairman. He's just on the board.
Chairman. Yeah.
That's it.
The new board member, James Bell, by the way, you may not know the name, but he was the corporate president of the Boeing company. So good time for him to retire as well.
Yeah. Also, there are 9 people on the board, of whom 3 are women. So let's
get another woman on there.
Make that basically increase all kinds of diversity there.
Former president and CEO of the Aerospace Corporation, Dr. Wanda Austin, joins the board of directors.
Yeah. Gore and Bell are going off the board. Sugar is their age and is not going off the board. And Levinson is about to be 75 and is the chairman of the board and has been. So I wonder if they've just sort of said, look, we'll replace 2 board members a year, but no more, because it's too much. And I think that's right. For a company like Apple, you want stability. I mean, not that the board is like super involved, but it is important to have proper governance on the board. And yeah, Tim is the only Apple employee on the board. Yeah. It's like, like Sugar is Northrop Grumman. I mean, these are titans of industry in a way, right?
Which is great. I mean, look, you couldn't have fired Steve Jobs if you didn't have an independent board. Not that was the best move ever, but that's the whole point of having. And as you point out, there are a lot of companies that do not have independent boards in tech. Austin is the first woman and the first African American well, she's not the first one on the board. It says she was the first woman and first African American to hold the position, I guess, at the Aerospace Corporation. Right. She's also been a leading advocate for STEM education. So good person to put on the board. Yeah,
she'll be the 4th woman on the board now. Yeah. So, yeah.
And poor Tim Cook. By the way, his pay, big pay cut.
Oh, poor Tim Cook.
For Tim. I kind of feel bad for him. He only made $63.2 million last year, but that's down from almost $100 million. So actually, he said, you can cut my pay 33%. It's okay. It's okay. Because,
I think if you got Tim Cook alone, he would admit that CEO compensation is ridiculous around the industry. I think he would also maybe point out how much value has been added to Apple since he's been CEO.
He's worth it, right?
If all you're looking at is the money, he's probably underpaid. If you look at it in terms of how everybody else who works at Apple is paid, he's overpaid because he's the CEO, and that's how we do it in corporate America. But like, he has added, like, for the money people, like Tim Cook is just a I mean, he made it rain, right? I mean, that's kind of his biggest legacy is he grew Apple and made it incredibly profitable.
Yeah.
So and nobody who's getting $60 million a year is hurting, right? It's fine.
And I will say that as someone who's worked with a lot of CEOs, they really are like we talk about football players getting paid a lot, or soccer players getting paid a lot, or other people getting paid a lot because of the demand. And I will say, as someone who's worked with a lot of C-suite folks, they are like those pro athletes. Like we think that they're like everybody else, but when it comes to interacting with other people, making plans, dealing with all the complexities of a large corporation, it's not like anybody can get up there and just do that. And I think that we just need to understand that it is a rarefied skill set, and it's easy for us to say that they're the same, but it's the same as what we're paying all these big athletes to do that. There's a big drop off between a $40 million a year quarterback and a $25 million, oftentimes, except for in San Francisco, where a $1 million QB is better than all the rest of them. But that won't last for very long. But they bring a lot of value to it, and they are not easily replaceable. And it's really complicated. Like I think that people underestimate how complicated doing what they do and what they have to know is when you see those big numbers. It's just there's not many of them out there that can do what they're doing.
Yeah, that's why in well-run companies like Apple, that's why it is actually significant when you see that, oh, wow, he gave a 45-minute interview to this person for this outlet, because every 10-minute block of a CEO's time is immensely valuable for the company to put 40 minutes on a CEO's schedule means something significant that you can debate later, but it's not, he didn't just do it because, hey, I got an hour. I got an hour between, like I have to make my flight to Des Moines to talk to the salesperson. I can just slip on a Zoom call. No, that's not how it works.
$3 million base salary.
There you go.
A pittance.
Yes.
A $47 million stock award. $10.7 million from non-equity compensation. I think that means the keys to the corporate jet. I don't know what that means. And $2.5 million in other compensation, mostly in the form of security costs. They count that as his salary, that he has such tight security. But
yeah,
you should.
When you look at someone traveling and you actually calculate the security, it isn't really like people talk about. When they said Mark Zuckerberg's security is like $8 million a year, I'm like, how do they do it for $8 million a year? Like, how do they put that into that budget? Because there's a group of people and you have to fly them everywhere, and you put them up, and
I gotta tell you, Dwayne The Rock Johnson is not cheap. He does not come cheap. If you want him to walk behind you everywhere you go, you got to pay something for that.
Yeah, but it's like a small entourage.
I love it when you see the guy and they're talking to their sleeves and they got the earpieces and they're going, I'm sure that Tim Cook's security detail is much less obvious, right?
There's always portions of all their security that are not obvious at all. Like that's the only.
You don't even know they're there. There's some guy in a bathrobe.
There's usually 5 or 6 of them, and 2 or 3 are very obvious, and 2 or 3 are very not obvious. That's kind of how that works.
Yeah. So. It sounds like Alex knows.
Just don't use any lasers near them. No lasers.
That's Secret Service. Secret Service doesn't like the lasers. So
and you're right. Every CEO at a certain level, they've got a crosshairs guy whose job is to make sure their crosshairs on somebody. Somebody who looks a little bit sketch.
Yikes.
No, the funny thing is when people come up to the White House and you'll see these 2 guys come out and they've got these really long soft cases and they over their shoulder, and they walk out to, there's a building across from the White House, and those guys walk out, and then heads of state come into the West Wing. So they'll go in, and there's this one sealed entrance that people know about it. It's not like I'm making it to tell any secrets, but it's always funny. Like you see the 2 guys walking out, and then you go, "Oh, there's a head of state coming."
Those aren't pool cues, I'm thinking.
Yeah, they're not going out to play pool. Those are the guys that sit on the other side.
3 foot band show. That must be a really big meeting.
Somebody's going to have to fill me in. What's the latest on the Apple Watch? Is it okay? Is it not okay?
It's okay-ish. Some of the stuff has been sustained. That Massimo, like some of Apple's appeals, they've said no. And there's other things going on, but it sounds like Apple's big solution to the problem to keep it on sale is that they will use software to just disable that sensor on new sales.
On new sales. So my Apple Watch is not going to lose its oximeter.
Yeah, no, it's not hardware. I think that they're just going to turn it off until they can come to a resolution for newly sold
Massimo,
Apple Watch Series 9 or Ultra 2s.
Massimo says you can't just fix it in software, dudes.
Right, exactly.
That's our hardware you're stealing.
Well, but I think that what they're saying is, I'm
sorry. Go ahead. I interrupted you.
I think that what Massimo was saying was that you can't. Apple said we can work around their patents with software, and Massimo says no, you can't. And now Apple's saying, well, we can just disable it so it doesn't actually do anything. I don't think that was what Massimo was saying they couldn't do. Maybe it is. I mean, I'm sure they don't want to do that, but I think that what Massimo was saying is you can't work around our patent and actually have that functionality. There's no way to write software that would get around that functionality.
Right. I think you're correct. Massimo actually specifically said that it's not a software thing. It is a hardware thing, and there's no way you can write new software that would be in compliance with our patents. Customs has already said that we feel this is to remove the feature entirely is a correct and acceptable way to get to allow Apple to continue to import watches into this thing. It's obviously not going to be a long-term solution. Apple's going to have to. It's going to be a lot of work that's very invisible because, for one thing, they're going to have to erase every hint from every piece of marketing materials that such a feature exists. This was going to be a problem because because if they just simply, we'll just like issue an OS release, that's an OS update that somebody turns it off. Well, you still have on the website and still have on the box and still have everyone saying that this is that blood oxygen sensing is part of this feature. People who, so long as they don't turn off that feature for people who have already purchased it, they're not in trouble with those purchasers. However, the first time someone buys this watch thinking that Apple has told them that this can sense blood oxygen levels, but it cannot, that's when a class action suit is going to happen.
So this is CNBC from yesterday. It might have changed already. Redesigned Apple Watches not subject to import ban, says U.S. Customs. Now, remember, it was the ITC, the U.S. International Trade Commission, that banned them, but I guess Customs has to enforce that ban. So if Customs says, no, we're not going to stop it, that's good news. And then the courts, so Apple said yesterday it's going to take as long as a year for this appeal to wend its way through the courts. So it expects a decision on its request to keep the ban paused during that time as early as today. I haven't heard yet. That's because the Federal Circuit is still thinking about whether to continue the pause or reinstate the ban. So it looks like Apple, according to CNBC, Apple argues it's likely to win the appeal and that allowing the ban to stay in effect would cause significant harm to the company. Massimo has said maintaining the pause would hurt its business and reputation and demoralize its scientists and engineers. You wouldn't want to demoralize those poor scientists and engineers. It also said yesterday that the Customs decision undermines Apple's argument that reinstating the ban would cause the giant irreparable harm. It's a complicated story, which I have not been able to parse, but I think it means you can buy one. I don't know what it means, but it won't have a blood oximeter app on it.
Exactly. It will not have it will still have the hardware because they can't redesign the hardware.
Right.
However, it will not have any software whatsoever that can activate that. And like I said, Massimo's position has always been that it's a hardware issue. Apple was making noises earlier to say, we'll adjust our algorithm so that the software reads it in a different way. They're saying, no, you've got hardware on this device that violates our patents. Until you rip out that hardware, your hardware is in violation of our patents. And as said, it's going to take about a year for the legal stuff to wind down. And if Apple still loses after that, they're just going to have to bin the whole thing.
All right.
Or basically come up with brand new hardware that doesn't infringe, or negotiate and sign a deal with Massimo to continue to use whatever base hardware they have. It's interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what the 2024 line of Apple Watches have in terms of actual hardware. Like, are they going to continue to have the same hardware platform under the hopes that they will be able to reactivate it with a software update in January or February of 2025? Are they going to try to, at this late stage, develop brand new hardware that they've properly licensed that doesn't infringe? Or are they going, anything could happen between now and October.
And if you want confusing, follow the beeper saga. I actually unfollowed the Beeper subreddit because it was just like, what's going on? And I took Beeper off my Android. This is the device that was supposed to let you be a blue bubble, even on an Android device. Initially, Beeper was selling a subscription that allowed you to use a Mac Mini in the cloud. Then they found some teenager who would figure out a way around Apple's authentication, and so they switched over to authenticating on a Linux server in the cloud, or you just yourself putting Beeper on your phone. But then Apple said no, and Apple blocked it. Now, apparently, according to the subreddit, and again, I haven't been able to verify this, some Beeper Mini users are saying, because now Beeper Mini requires you register with a Mac, they're saying that Apple's banning their Mac, saying no. So, and this is also from a Boy Genius report, although BGR says the Beeper Mini has been removed from the store, at least temporarily.
Yeah.
It's very confusing.
It comes from the increasingly desperate ways in which Beeper tried to keep this app functioning. The last ditch effort was to say their first failure point was that they were using a library of valid device IDs to basically tell iMessage servicers. So that was at the first iteration of this app, when you could just give them a phone number and would validate. They were basically drawing from a pool of known valid IDs. Then Apple simply deauthorized all of those valid IDs. Then at the last iteration was, okay, tell you what, if you have a Mac, you can basically clone the ID off of that device and use that to authenticate Beeper Mini on your Android phone. And then now Apple seems to be saying that, okay, guess what? Any ID that was used to fraudulently register a non-Apple piece of hardware with iMessage to encourage to make sure that the entire network remains safe and secure, we're going to invalidate all those IDs. So that ID you used on your working iMessage on your Mac no longer works because it's been invalidated.
And now Beeper's saying, oh, we're just a messaging app. Forget the blue bubble.
That was fun. That was a fun holiday season, wasn't it?
We're just a not very good messaging app. How about that? How about that, kids? Can you use that? So yeah, I'm actually glad I took Beeper Mini off my Android. I was getting a little nervous that I might get blocked.
I never installed it to begin with, because I think I was curious to see how this would resolve itself, but I felt as though this was going to be quite a ride until it resolved itself. And not that I was predicting that something exactly like this would happen, that suddenly I can't use iMessage on my actual for real Mac. However, it was like, I mean, I think what I said at the beginning was that now that Apple has said that RCS is coming as a supported protocol in 2024. Why do I want to have this? And to just have a blue bubble for 4, 5, 6, 7 months, and also not knowing what happens when I deinstall this app, even if it keeps working fine. What happens if I deinstall this app? Is iMessage going to get confused as to where iMessages should go, or even just basic text messages should go? So it was an easy decision on my end.
Yeah. Okay, I guess we knew it wouldn't last. I guess that's kind of over. I hope RCS just becomes really what RCS could do is replace SMS. And it could replace SMS in Apple's messages, replace it on all these other apps, and then we would have a nice encrypted cross-platform solution. But I have to point out, these companies really don't want to be cross-platform. Nobody wants to be cross-platform, Apple included.
And as Alex, I'm sorry, I think I might have been about to say this thing you were about to say. Given that most of the world has switched to WhatsApp for this sort of functionality, there's also a question as to how necessary is this. I'm glad that bog standard phones will have a much better from a security and media and experience point of view protocol available to them, but it's not super critical. That's why Apple was able to talk the EU into saying, yeah, you know what, we are not gatekeepers of messaging. We wish in our fondest dreams we were gatekeepers of messaging in the EU. We are just simply an also ran.
Yeah, and I think that the biggest concern for Android is really the U.S. market, where you have a huge number of kids under 18 that are on an iPhone because of the blue bubble and green bubble, which isn't going to change with RCS. But I think that, anytime you look at companies, they want to commoditize or commoditize anything that doesn't apply, that creates a cost for them, and control anything that creates a revenue for them. So those are, you can always tell where they think those things are by what they're trying to control and what they're trying to commoditize by open sourcing or anything else.
Yeah. Let's see. Did you see this poster? The Apple Pascal poster. Of course, Nicolas Wirt, who created Pascal, passed away on New Year's Day. And there's been a lot of memorials to him. But this one is a very cool one from NanoRaptor.
Yeah, Dana Sabera. Yeah.
Oh, you know who he is? Okay. They took the Apple Pascal poster and turned it into a SVG vector image. So you can now get a copy of it and print it and put it on your wall. And it's kind of a cool poster. Just shows how cool Pascal was, because the whole language and its syntax is encapsulated in this one poster.
Yeah, Dana is a great artist and kind of prankster. She posts things to her Mastodon account that are like Macs that never were, like that are Photoshops and renders of like bizarre. Just a great follow if you want. NanoRaptor.
I'm following her right now.
But then she built this poster as a PDF, and it's in honor of the Apple Pascal. Yeah.
Oh, it's a PDF. Okay, nice, very nice.
Yeah. I hate nostalgia in all its forms, but oh man, I had so many great memories of Apple Pascal. That was like the first time I felt like a real program. Okay, maybe the first time I felt like a real programmer was when I went from BASIC to assembler. Yeah. But when I started using, there's this thing called Apple Pascal. What is it? Oh my God, this is like I could be cool by not using BASIC, but not have to want to like throw myself into a cold river by using assembler for every single tiny thing. So yeah, I'm glad that parts of this history are being preserved and sort of promoted this way, because it needs to be preserved, and the stories need to be told.
Yeah, and as I remember, this was before Objective-C, before Swift. This was the language, the high-level language you used in the earliest days, System 7 days to program your.
And it definitely felt like, I don't know whether Andy did. My journey was starting in BASIC, then Pascal, then assembly. That was kind of the step, the one step to the next.
I think I went in that order actually.
Alex, I'll be honest with you. I was able to get an illegal version of a pirated version of the Merlin assembler before I was able to get my hands on a pirated version of Apple Pascal.
Yeah, there you go.
Hey, a little note to our fans and friends that this survey is up, but only runs through the end of the month. And we really want to get people who listen to every show to respond to the Twit survey. We do this once a year. The idea is we can't spy on you, because that's not how podcasts work. So we gather information about you once a year through the survey. Just take a couple of minutes so that we can not only provide you with content you want, but also tell advertisers, the demographics or whatever, in a very general way. We don't take any information about you individually. So if you would, twit.tv/survey24. I want to make sure MacBreak listeners and viewers get their opinions heard as well. twit.tv/survey24. And I thank you in advance for taking the annual survey. I think I've run out of stories. Prematurely run out of. Could it be an hour and a half MacBreak Weekly? No. That would be crazy talk. Anything I missed that I'm looking through the OLED iPad production is apparently now underway, according to the supply chain. Samsung and LG are both making OLEDs for the 13-inch iPad Pro and the 11-inch. Wasn't there going to be a even bigger iPad Pro, or was that just a bogus rumor?
Just a fantasy, I think.
A fantasy. So the fact that production this is from the Elec, which is a South Korean supply chain rumor site, or just news site, but this is kind of a rumor. LG Display recently started production, according to the Elec, of the 13-inch model, is also planning to start production of the 11-inch model, and Samsung is going into production of the Apple iPad OLED. It'll be a nice OLED. They're using, this is from 9 to 5 Mac, a hybrid glass polyamide film with 2-stack tandem OLED. So How much would you pay? Two layers of pixels instead of one, which increases brightness, reduces burn-in. Sounds like it'll be a nice display. So if you haven't bought an iPad yet, hang on for those OLED iPads, which will, if they're making them now, probably in the spring, you think?
Maybe
that's the rumor.
We talked about last week before how this was like 2023 is the first year that Apple didn't update the iPads at all. So this could be, and I don't think I think Jason made the point that it wasn't anything like portentous about it. Simply that's just simply how things got clumped together. But I think that does mean that 2024 is going to be a really fun year for iPads, particularly if I really don't know if Apple's thinking about doing like a larger than 12.9 inch iPad. But oh my goodness, if they did like a 14.5, if they made that even just not like a prison lunch tray sized iPad, but something that was materially bigger, so big that an artist could have like a really good working area plus a really good tool area. I think that would help to redefine what the iPad is and bring it to the next level.
How big is that prison lunch tray? Is it yay big? I don't have much familiarity with the
county or federal.
That's the difference. You see.
Well, I was awaiting trial.
And they're smaller in the county, I would think. Yeah. Also, there is no AppleCoin, and don't go investing in it. Apparently, there have been a lot of posts on Twitter about a fake AppleCoin. So simple, so convenient, crypto secure. Looks a little bit like an AirTag. There's an actual coin. This is not the first time 9 to 5 Mac points out that fake Apple ads, and it's easy to make an ad look like it's an Apple ad, have scammed people. In fact, I didn't know this, but in 2022, scammers created an Apple crypto event video stream on YouTube, which got 70,000 viewers. It was titled Apple Event Live, CEO of Apple, Tim Cook, Apple and Metaverse in 2022. It was actually just a ripped interview from CNN 4 years earlier. They covered over the CNN logo. They added logos for Bitcoin and Ethereum, and more importantly, had links to some scammy cryptocurrency websites where you could buy Bitcoin and Ethereum. So this is not the first time. There is no AppleCoin, as far as I know. So if you see that on Twitter, no, don't.
Also, Mr. Beast is not giving away 1 million iPads.
Actually, he might. Don't put it past Mr. Beast.
Maybe, but
the Beast could do all sorts of things.
You'd have to do something really debasing to get them, though. And what are you going to do with 1 million iPads? One person, come on.
I had a struggle whether to watch the football game or the Emmys on Sunday. I flipped back and forth between them. Kept waiting for Apple TV to get its Emmy. They only won one. Although Sir Elton John did become an EGOT, which is pretty darn good for EJ. But Blackbird got one Emmy award, and actually, Blackbird, which is worth watching, I think is pretty good. The character Paul Walter Hauser, who played the serial killer, and really, either he is a complete creep or he's a very good actor, because he was very believable. Outstanding supporting actor in a limited or anthology series or movie for Blackbird. One of 3 nominations for the show. It was Ray Liotta's last production. He passed, actually, I think in the middle of the producing for the show. So, sorry, Apple TV Plus. Sorry, John Hamm. But actually, John Hamm is very good in Fargo this year. He will get an award next year, I think, for his creepy role in Fargo.
John Hamm is pretty good.
He's
in general. Does pretty good work.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Love him.
Did we talk about
else?
Have you covered the changes that Apple has in the podcasting world?
You know, I don't know if this is so inside baseball that I shouldn't. We've known about it for a long time. So Apple, and actually, I kind of think Apple's, don't tell anybody, but I think Apple's kind of doing the right thing.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Basically, it's sensing when you're not listening, right? And,
it's really bad for podcasts.
Over download. and so if you're counting downloads numbers, and but it's that thing, it's like, it's bad for podcasts, but at the same time, it's really bad for advertisers if you're claiming listeners who
Right.
are not actually listening to your podcast.
So normally what happens when you subscribe in a podcast application, we like Pocket Casts, although apparently we don't like it that much because it doesn't work great for the club members. It's something about caching. So don't use Pocket Casts if you're in the Club Twit. Use Apple Podcasts. But for people who don't listen to Club Twit, you subscribe in a podcast client like Pocket Casts or Apple Podcasts and say, download every episode. Pocket Casts will just keep doing that forever. Even if you stop listening to a show, it'll keep downloading it. Apple, after you stop listening, if you miss 5 shows, it will say, oh, well, obviously you're not listening to this anymore. And it'll stop downloading it, which actually seems like the right behavior. But remember, podcasts like ours, we charge the advertiser by number of downloads. We can't tell whether you've listened. And so if your podcast client keeps downloading it forever, we say, that's a good thing. You may want to listen to that someday.
Well, but I think also that I think the hardest part is trying to figure out a way out of the whole, like, measuring impact as opposed to the number of downloads. Like, I think that we've caught up for the last, I don't know, decades.
That's the right way to do it. But most agencies in advertising, they're not saying, well, we got good return on investment. They're saying, what was the cost per thousand, please? And how many people actually heard it? So the story, it comes from Semaphore, the incredible shrinking podcast industry, is that a lot of podcasts have noticed big drops in numbers when Apple did this, which, as I think you're saying, Jason, means those
people
numbers
weren't
were
listening.
spurious.
Yeah.
Well, and it's like, if you look at YouTube, like if you post a video, we were just talking about this on another forum. If you post a video to Twitter and Facebook are kind of like reach. They just say, everybody saw your video. You're like, all these people saw the video. YouTube is like, well, they have to watch for 30 seconds. And if you embed that video and set it to autoplay, we're not going to count that at all.
Right.
Like that doesn't count. And that means that they can go back to their numbers aren't as impressive. It doesn't look as good when you look at them. But when they talk to advertisers, they're saying these are real numbers. Like this is something you can actually count on.
So the New York Times, The Daily, which along with Dateline, publicly touted reaching over 1 billion total downloads. The numbers went down suddenly because people subscribe but weren't listening to every show, and as soon as you stop listening, Apple stops downloading. The Semaphore quotes one podcast industry insider: nearly every podcast that regularly publishes got an enormous haircut. We notice for sure. I don't know. I think there are a lot of reasons why downloads are trending down. There's a lot more shows. There's a lot of reasons why there might be a drop in downloads. We've had a kind of continuous drop in downloads. So the earliest days, our biggest show, This Week in Tech, was getting 250,000 downloads every week, and it's now down to about half that. And I guess, there's a small percentage drop off. But I expect that. It's kind of normal, especially with older shows, because older shows don't have the buzz. Apple doesn't, they're not getting a lot of new subscribers, so Apple doesn't put them at the top of the lists. Those are based on new subscriptions. So I'm not, I kind of think this is normal. And I do think that saying, well, you should continue to download them even if you don't listen to them is a little shady. But people who work on audio at the New York Times, NPR, and other major publishers told Semaphore they were surprised by the September change, which had been years in the making, but came with no advanced warning from Apple. So, Jason, you're a massive podcaster. Are you going to, you kind of think Apple did the right thing too?
Yeah. First off, most of my podcasts, because they're listened to by nerds, are listening in Overcast or Pocket Casts and not Apple Podcasts. Right. But Apple Podcasts is still a player. Spotify's a player.
It's our number one download tool, I think.
I think for most podcasts, it is number one or number 1 and 2 with Spotify. I think the truth is, like, if you don't listen, what a waste of bandwidth, what a waste of internet. Yeah. And the measure is wrong. The fact is, I would argue the best advertisers are advertising because the results they get, and they,
I've had
that
matters.
Yeah, I've had that case where I've had a podcast with fewer downloads, but have the same results as one with more downloads. And as far as the advertiser is concerned, they're the same, right? They're the same because so if you're shedding 5, 10, 15% of your audience that wasn't listening, and you're worried about its your effect on advertising. I mean, fundamentally, the advertisers don't want those people. They're not listening, and they're not going to impact how effective your ad is. Plus, it seems super wasteful. So it's one of those things where, like, as podcasters, we have benefited greatly from the idea that the downloads happen, and it's not like a YouTube where there's telemetry on everything that you're doing all the time. This is the other side of it, which is, you know, having an app developer say, we're not going to waste the bandwidth for all of our customers on a podcast you're not listening to. I think it's fair play. I think we benefited from the fact that everything gets auto downloaded, whether they listen or not. And this is the other side, which is if they completely abandon you, yeah, you should probably not download until they express an interest in listening again.
Yeah. It's one of the reasons the Times launched its own app, right? Use our app.
They'll get that telemetry then, right? BBC did that. Yeah,
Spotify.
For sure.
The hardest part is getting people to download the app. Like anytime a new vertical tries to create their own app, the hardest part is actually getting people to download it and continue to use it. A lot of people will download it for a little while. If they find that content anywhere else, they just stop using it because it's not part of their overall pattern. Right. And so for individual brands, those have generally been a failure. Because they just, people want to go somewhere they can get all their content or a bunch of their content, not they get only that one vertical. They just don't have enough content to fill it so that it's worth opening the app. And that's been the problem that individual apps have had generally.
10 years ago, it was clear that the way people were getting their podcasts had changed. It used to be iTunes and you hook up your iPod and stuff. And it became clear to me that even the website, that really the best way to do it 10 years ago was to have an app. And of course, we tried and failed. We spent a lot of money on an app that was terrible. So we've never really had an app. And then, of course, times changed again, and having an app is not an advantage. It's just a way to spy on your listeners. And I still believe in RSS. And, honestly, completely anecdotally, a good podcast with a host that's trusted like ours, but like yours too, Jason, and many others, and like yours, Alex, does very well for its advertisers in terms of response. Much better often than a YouTube video, which might have higher numbers.
And again, a smarter advertiser is going to understand. I learned a lot from Scott Bourne.
The problem is most advertisers don't, and that's the problem.
I learned a lot from Scott Bourne because when we were starting like This Week in Photography, Scott would have no conversations about numbers. He didn't care. Like he was like, Canon's going to give us this much money. I'm going to tell them how much they're going to pay us, and then they're going to pay us to be on the show.
I wish that still worked.
I wish that still worked. Wrong business. Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't. It doesn't anymore. A lot of buys are done by agencies now. I mean, it's just not. It doesn't work. So it's one of the reasons. And so I wasn't going to bring this up because it is very inside baseball, but it is one of the reasons one of many reasons we are going to our audience and saying, hey, if you want us to keep doing what we do, you got to support us because we can't count on the ad industry and agencies to support us anymore. It's just not the way it used to be. So this is my plug for joining Club Twit. It's $7 a month. You get ad-free versions of all the shows. You get our Discord channel, which is really a lot of fun just without the shows. It's just a great place to hang out with other like-minded people into tech. You also get special shows we don't put out on the regular feed. Like that's where we moved iOS today, trying to give it a shot inside the club. Same thing with Hands on Macintosh. Micah does that. Hands on Windows with Paul Thurrott. We have the Untitled Linux Show, the Home Theater Geeks. We have a lot of stuff that is inside the club. We really want to make it worth your $7, but the real reason, and you have ad-free versions of all the shows, but the real reason you do it, I would hope, is to support what we do and to keep shows like this going. I don't want to be dependent on the ad market, frankly. We are somewhat. That's why we've got to lay people off and cancel shows. But ideally, it would be direct feedback from our audience. This is what we like. This is what we don't like. Twit.tv/ClubTwit if you're not a member. We would appreciate it. So I think what is next is our picks of the week. My friends, as you continue to listen to MacBreak Weekly, we're glad you're here this week. Let's kick off the picks of the week with you, Jason Snell.
I'm going to steal Andy's pick, so Andy, join me here. We're going to do this together.
I'm happy to.
I almost said me third, and I was like,
I scrolled down to put it in, and Andy had already done it.
So Jason, I made sure that the very first thing I did as soon as I got to my desk. But I'm glad we're both doing this. Let's go ahead.
BB Edit 15 came out.
Oh, yay.
Lead developer of BB Edits in Rhode Island, like some other people on this show I
Mr.
can
Rich
mention.
Siegel and his parrots, ladies and gentlemen.
That's right. So new version of BB Edit. I love it. It is not, there's a lot of confusion about it. It's literally a 30-year-old app. It's more than 30 years old now.
Wow.
But it always moves with the times. This is a new major version, the first in a few years. There's no subscription. You just pay for the upgrades. And there's more than 200 new features, I think they said in this version, a lot of feature updates. What I always describe it as is as a text utility. I write in it. I also added Python scripts in it. I know people use it for web development. They use it for scripting. They use it for software development. And like I said, I also use it as a text utility in order to like I was doing a thing this weekend where I needed to take a bunch of data off of a web page and then parse it in a certain way so I could get it in a spreadsheet. And I pasted it into BB Edit and I used their, remove duplicates thing, and then I used a grep pattern matching search, and like all that stuff is in there. It's just so useful in so many different ways. It's not in an IDE. It's not meant to be, but it has all of these completely nerdy things for writers and computer users and developers. I used it today, in fact, with one of the new features of BB Edit 15, which is, believe it or not, GPT support.
AI is here.
And I know it sounds weird, but like they had this feature called shell worksheets where you're in a text editor view and you type a shell command and press like enter or function return or control return. You can set that up to whatever. And it does that as if you entered it in the terminal and puts the output in this same worksheet, which I'll tell you again, is also a text editor window, which is kind of wild. So they adapted.
This was a beloved feature in Mac Programmers Workshop.
Yeah, exactly.
Years and years ago.
And then
I
Rich brought it to BB Edit.
And I was so glad he brought it to BB Edit because it was one of the best features.
It's powerful because your terminal is also your text editor at the same time. So the GPT worksheets work in the same premise, which is you can put input into a GPT. You got to put in your API key, so you got to pay for ChatGPT. You can select which version, and then you can ask it things, and it will give you the output. So this morning, I realized one of my scripts was failing when it was trying to send a ping to a webhook for one of my automations, and I got an error back, and I'm like, oh, I need to add error handling to that. I wonder how I did that. And I literally took my Python script from BB Edit, pasted it into a GPT worksheet, appended a thing at the top that said, hey, this script needs error handling so that when it gets a 502 error, it doesn't add this item to the list of things that it's done because it didn't do it and it should wait and do it again later. And then selected the whole thing, including the script, sent it to GPT-4, and in about a minute, it returned a only slightly rewritten version of my script with the error handling inserted and a block that said, here's what I did in order to do this. And then I did the responsible thing, which is carefully transfer the lines that changed. And you could even compare them if you wanted to using BB Edit. And you know what? It did it. It works. It makes sense. I understand what it did.
Perfect use, frankly, for
and that's how
Copilot or
exactly.
ChatGPT.
And if it didn't work, they also keep the context, the individual shell worksheets. You can save them out and use them in context. So I could have asked it another question and said, no, actually, I want you to do it like this. And it would have known from the context what the script was and what my previous request has, like GPTs can do in remembering the conversation. So that I used it today. It's a great feature. I know people roll their eyes, some people at GPT, but like when used for the right purpose, it can be incredibly powerful. And by putting it off in the worksheet, I think that Barebones is doing the right thing to sort of like dip their toe in and say, we know you want this. Because I was about to open a browser window and I was like, wait a second, I don't need to do that. And so that's pretty great. Andy, what else can we say about that?
I mean, basically,
tag team picks of the week.
I mean, we're both huge fans of BB Edit, and the fact that like we've been using Macs for roughly the same amount of time, and we've been using BB Edit for roughly the same amount of time. It really is a testimony to Rich and the entire team of developers who work on BB Edit, how committed they are to making sure that the role of BB Edit is to make your life easier if you have to manipulate text for a living. And that could include people who are writers like Jason and I. It can be programmers. It can be diagnostic people. essentially every time there's a feature that seems to be relevant for anybody who's in that sort of role, it shows up in BB Edit, and it shows up in a way that doesn't make it more complicated, doesn't make it lose its focus. I mean, one of the first interactions I had with Rich was, "Hey, how come I really wish there were like some sort of a WYSIWYG mode, even if I could just see boldface and italics." And like, no, there's just no reason for. I mean, it'd be nice, but that's not what BB Edit is about. But every single feature that they put into version 15, and there are a lot of new features, you can really see how many people are going to look at 1, 2, or 3 of these and say, wow, my life just got so much easier because of this feature. Like my first thing was, I do use BB Edit for a lot of my writing, not all of it, but a lot of it. But a lot of what I do with it is that where I need to take something that I might have written in Ulysses and make it more portable to paste it into an email or to do something else with it, and to do a transformation on it that is very, very simple and routine. And they just made it much, much easier for me to like apply one of these text recipes. They've added a simple feature called cheat sheets, so that if there's stuff that you just either need to refer to, or like a markdown system that you keep having to cut and paste in, it makes it much easier to keep those things listed and handy. Again, the GPT features are amazing because like Jason, like it sounds as though we use it for the same thing for development. It's not that, hi, I don't know anything about Rust. Could you make me like a video game that's like Donkey Kong that works inside of. It's more like, oh, I need to add this feature, and I can either hash this out on my own and take 14 hours to do it, or I can have this friend who really knows Python show me like an example of code that would make this work, and then I might have to modify it a little bit, but oh, I see exactly how that works now. Thank you. And I'm off and running in 20 minutes. And the fact that at BB Edit, the bare bones software would think, well, why are we making people go out to a web browser and cut and paste that in? Wouldn't it make sense if they're using it to develop code that we allow them to get that code and generate that code and modify that code within this app? And that is the nexus of every single decision made for BB Edit over the past, 30 years now? I think
30, 31, yeah.
31, yep. So, yep. It's $60. You buy it. No ads, no pestering, no nothing. There's a free version of it that has most of the features, just not the ones that will save you an immense amount of time, money, and frustration. And as always, like if you bought it recently, the update is free. If you had the previous version but you didn't buy it recently, you get a big discount. If you bought 2 versions or 3 versions ago, you will get a discount of some kind. This is why there are people who are just keep sending bare bones software money, because not only great app, not only great support, but they treat you right.
And that's your tag team pick of the week. Andy and Jason, good job.
We are the ultimate warriors of
and
whatever.
I'm B and he is B.
Rich is a regular on the show. He's been on many times, thanks to Andy, and
yes,
we love him. And BB Edit is great. Mr. Alex Lindsay, I guess that leaves you. I mean, I was going to do an Emacs recommendation, but I'm not crazy, so I think we'll do your pick.
So I have my pick. I think Oliver Breidenbach has been waiting for this for a long time, which is Memo
love
Live.
Olivier. Yeah.
Where Oliver has been waiting for like 10 years. It's been like a serious green eggs and ham with me. Like he's just like, do you like it with a goat or with a, like trying to figure out how to get me to use Memo, and it was just a different interface. And I've started to do the graymatter.show with Michael Krasny in Memo. So basically, what I'm doing,
really.
Yeah. So I do it in a Memo, and we're starting to expand it. We're going to start doing some other workshops in it. And so this is what, if you look at it here, let's see, this is just a real quick, it's just these little transitions that are kind of nice. We had Jacques Pepin on this.
So you're adding video to this show, which was audio only.
We're experimenting with it, and all of these little animations and going back and forth, and the opened and all these other things. And to get this is all being done in Memo, and we're feeding Zoom via Siphon and Zoom ISO, but we're going to start moving it you can do Zoom directly in Memo Live now. And this is what this show looks like. So this is, you can see the open here. And then I'm not actually dealing with any of these. I just have these little things down here. So I go, okay, well, Michael's going to be a solo. Well, that's me. That's the switcher that you're seeing right now. But but I want a 2-up, and so it just slides over. I want the guest to be a little bit bigger, and I can kind of play with it there. And so I'm starting to kind of play with a lot of these things. And after I got, and you're building all these layers up to figure out what you want, and it's actually become, to do the show with graphics and a bunch of different behaviors, it's become really easy. Like it's just really like I sit there and I set up and I think about it on Wednesday night, usually for a couple hours. I go, I'm going to change this. I'm going to move this over here. But when I'm actually doing the show, it's like 5 buttons. I just keep pushing these 5 buttons. And the cool thing again is that Mimo Live now will allow you to, right now I've been using Zoom ISO just because I know it well. But where I'm going next is actually Mimo can join a Zoom session like this one and grab onto, I can just say, well, I want to get Andy and Jason and Leo, and each one of you becomes an input in Mimo directly. So there's not any, so I can just join as a user from Mimo and be able to pull all those in. They're supporting.
Does it do ISO audio tracks too, or?
So I think it can. You can embed those into it because of because I'm used to it.
You don't bother. Yeah.
Well, again, it can do it, and you can pull all those ISOs here. You can say, I want to record. So if I click back over here, I can add things here, which is that I want to grab the audio there. I can record every person. So one of the things that we're doing for some of these shows, we want to start delivering some shorts and use Opus to do it, but we have all this graphics going on. So what I'm going to do is have it set up so it's grabbing the ISOs, both ISOs of the subjects, and so that I can just deliver that to Opus and have it build some shorts for me, that are little 1-minute sections that it thinks are cool.
That's pretty awesome.
And so it is, but you can grab you can grab all the ISO. What I do to grab the ISO is a little different because I'm using Zoom ISO. I use loopback and I use the audio hijack, and I grab onto that because it's, and record them. But I'm going to be moving more and more towards using Mimo to put those things together. I'm actually doing a session at 6:00 on Thursday with Colleen Henry, just to ask me anything kind of.
Oh, wow.
Colleen, it's like
that'll be a must listen.
Yeah, that's going to be, and we're going to stream it to YouTube on Office Hours Global. And so we're going to stream it. But what you'll see me doing is bringing Colleen in over Zoom ISO and putting it into Mimo. And the two of us will just sit there and talk, but I'll be running the show and cutting back and forth and Colleen will be answering, I guess, questions about whatever people ask Colleen about, which is mostly streaming in the internet, and they'll get answers that will pop their head out. But it's a really, so far I've been doing it with Michael as a person sitting next to him, like I'm over on another desk in my room, but I'm looking at, can I do this by myself? Can I just do, and then the goal is we're going to do up to about 6 people in that process. That we can kind of.
How much is it? It's Mimo Live, MIMO.
$70 a month. It's a big subscription. Okay, there are different educational costs and different ones for nonprofits. So for the standard one, it's a little bit more expensive, but it's a lot of features. I mean, there's a lot to it, and I think the more I dig into it, again, it took Oliver a long time to get me to
Oliver Breidenbach, who's been on the show before.
He's been on the show.
Come out every year to be to visit during Macworld Expo. And it's Boinx, BOINX software. Yeah, they do Photo Magico and
he's great developer.
Stop motion. And
there's different versions. I think I'm using the broadcast version, I believe. But so there's different versions and different costs that you can look at there. But it is. It's probably the most full feature. The other one that people use on the Mac is
Ecamm Live. Is that
this has got more features than a lot more. There's a lot more to it than Ecamm. I've only used Ecamm a little bit, so I will admit that I can't give you an apples to apples conversion between the two because I've been using hardware. So this is kind of a step for me towards using software to do all this stuff because I'm usually using Blackmagic ATEMs and a room full of hardware. And so I wanted something a little bit lighter at my house that I can kind of, a boat with a little bit more dexterity that I can go out and work with. I mean, Office Hours still runs on, a lot of hardware. And there's a lot of bits and pieces, but we're experimenting a lot more this year with software and also in the cloud. So, this has been part of that experimentation, and it's working really well.
What's really interesting is you've gotten a situation where you could do in software a lot of what you would do in hardware. now with programs like this. And it's really cool. We should mention Ecamm Live is a sponsor. And we're big fans with Doc Rock and everybody.
A ton of people have been really successful with Ecamm, and it is a really, I think these are the two big ones that Mimo Live and Ecamm are the two big ones on the Mac. So those are the ones for you to kind of look at.
And it's just amazing how much production you could do. Yeah. How much you can do in production. Yeah. Is Mimo Live Silicon native? Do you know?
It is. It is.
Yeah.
There's been some. I have to look back on it. There have been a couple like virtual camera limitations with Sonoma. I think that's all been solved. But there was a little bit of a don't upgrade if you're using it as a virtual camera. That means if you want to pass it, like a lot of people use Mimo Live or Ecamm to go back into Zoom, through it. Mm-hmm. And I don't do that. I just grab everything and have it be on the outside. So it hasn't been a big deal for me.
Excellent pick, and we're glad we can get Oliver. get him his long-deserved plug. We mentioned iStop Motion, which is an awesome program that they do, and I know.
He works so hard, and it really is. I'm like, I really do like green eggs and ham. He's like
the Rich Siegel of Germany, or is he French? I can't remember.
He's German.
Yeah. He's the Rich Siegel of Germany, I guess, is probably the closest analogy. He's been doing this a long time. Used to see him at Macworld Expo back in the day.
Oh yeah. He's been doing this forever.
Yeah. Thank you, Alex Lindsay. What's going on in office hours these days? Anything exciting?
We're having a good time.
Question.
We just had some. I mean, a lot of the sessions today we were talking about actually how we made the logo, like for office hours, and so it was an Illustrator. It's kind of an
Colleen
Illustrator.
Do that with her soldering iron?
No, I did that with
welding torch.
I did that with Midjourney. It was that's an interesting still for that. But what we did is we talked about we're talking about how we built the logo. What does it take to build a geometric logo inside of Illustrator, like at the level that you can use it for print and everything else. And so we talked about that today. Tomorrow we're doing a mic off. We've got a bunch of mics that I've accumulated.
I always like the mic off. Yeah.
Well, there's ones that are $70 and there's ones that are $100, $300, and we're going to put a bunch of them together and compare them to the mic that I have now and let people think about and we'll talk about what we like and don't like. On Thursday,
I want to enter this one because I'm not using the PR40. I didn't want to carry the PR40 around with me. This is a smaller Audio-Technica drum mic, but I think it's the same large dynamic coil that the PR40 is, and I think it's pretty similar. I mean, obviously the PR40 is an amazing microphone, but that's what everybody else is using. But I think except you, Alex, I don't know. You're using
I'm using a Stellar X2. But you have to treat the entire room for the large diaphragm. No, this isn't a Neumann. Yeah. This is a $200 mic. We actually compared it to the Neumann. This is a good example. We compared it to the Neumann and decided that we liked the Stellar better than the Neumann. The Neumann was $650. That's the one I use for voiceovers, and so we moved to that one. But so we'll do a mic off on Wednesday. On Thursday, we have John Ross, who's one of the top surround mixers in the world. So he's going to come in and talk about how they approach mixing for film. So lots of fun.
OfficeHours.global. And of course, one of the beauty parts of this is you can actually participate directly because it's a Zoom call in the morning. You could also watch it passively on YouTube. But if you go to OfficeHours.global, you'll see all the info.
We have a little microsite. If you just go to askofficehours.global, and if you go to that, you can put your name and your question in any time of the day, and then we see them show up. We see them just show up in the morning, and we go, let's bring those in, and everyone then gets to vote on them in there, so people can actually just ask questions there. So you don't have to log in or do anything else. You can just ask your question there.
That's really cool.
It's a lot of fun. Yeah.
Oh, that's neat. Does that ties into that software you guys did?
It does. Yeah. It ties in. So it feeds back into Mukana, which is the software that we have. Inside of Mukana, you can vote the questions up and down and chat with other people during the show. But if you don't want to do all those things, you can just ask questions and then we'll put them in. You have to listen later to find out when we got to them. But we generally get to all the questions eventually.
And if you're thinking, gosh, I really would like to get this madman working on my project, you can. 090.media. That's his day job.
And I do exactly what we do in office hours and Twit. We just do it for 090. So we solve those problems. So if that's something you're trying to figure out, then let us know.
If you ever need to measure the East Room, this is your man.
Exactly. I know exactly. I have a 3D model. So.
Mr. Andy Ihnatko, GBH coming up.
Yep, I'm not on this week, but next week, next Thursday at 12:45, go to wgbhnews.org to watch it live or later. Listen to it live or later.
It is not a labor unless it's a labor of love. And then it's...
when you're doing something that takes 36 hours and late nights and lots of research and self-doubt and then putting yourself in front of hundreds of thousands of people wondering if you're making any sense whatsoever, it's actually quite stressful.
Wow.
Oh, I mean, it's not like work at all. No.
Thank you, Andy. And Jason Snell, sixcolors.com, of course, and his podcast at sixcolors.com/Jason. Anything exciting coming up?
I just feel like we're going to be doing a lot of Vision Pro stuff. My Apple report card is going to happen at the end of the month, too. I mean, just stay tuned to Six Colors.
Thank you for asking me, finally, after 30 years, to participate
Well, we haven't been doing it that long, but you're welcome to. Have you filled it out yet?
Yeah, you didn't get my answers?
I haven't looked at the list yet. I got to do that this week.
So there's still time?
There's still time, Andy.
Okay, I'll do that.
I did
today.
it right away. I was so honored. I've never been asked before my opinion, so I was so honored. I filled it out right away.
I did that stupid thing where it's like, oh wow, this guy. I really wanted to put some thought into this, and so I'm not going to do this right away when I'm kind of all frazzled at 2:10 in the afternoon, and then it like.
Well, the reminder email will be coming out in a few days, so you'll get. So anyway, that'll be a fun thing to do later in the month, and I anticipate lots of Vision Pro madness as well. So check it out. Good conversation about the Vision Pro on Upgrade with Mike Hurley this week. That's another thing people could check out if they want.
And so were you invited? I think you said there were very few Apple bloggers got invited to those demos.
Yeah, Gruber was there and got a demo. They're just getting the demo, it feels like, from July, though, or right from June.
Just the same one again.
It's just a little bit more.
Apple's trying to get some press.
Yeah, they're just refreshing it. So I haven't had that demo, and I did not get invited to New York, but who knows? Hopefully I'll get something out here on the West Coast.
Yeah, I'm actually on the East Coast and I didn't get invited, so there. Apple clearly doesn't like me, but that's okay because I like them. And unrequited love is the best, don't you think?
Oh yeah, that's what they all say. All the poets say that.
Yeah. My heart is breaking for you, Apple, but it's okay.
We love you, Leo.
I am just not sufficiently reverent, apparently. Also, I'm wearing a bathrobe, which probably puts Apple off, I would think. We do this show every Tuesday, whether I am in the studio or not. 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. Father Robert said that I could live with him in the Vatican and do the show from his podcast studio on the roof overlooking St. Peter's Square. And I am very tempted.
There you go. If you're
very tempted.
You're in solid with the Pope, for heaven's sake.
I'm halfway to the Pope. I'm halfway there. I got the lights. I don't even need the lights. He's got the lights. I could just show up. And then apparently they have some nice rooms in the Jesuit house. I have to think they're kind of Spartan, spare, but I don't know. We'll see.
I'm gonna in Harvard Square. There is a charter house where like it's not necessarily an Airbnb. It is like specifically for that's part of their charter, the Jesuits, and like so it's not like a cruise ship cabin. It is like bare, but it's more simple than anything else.
I think simple's fine.
I mean, honestly, it's actually we want to like be quiet and read or
contemplative.
Write or just
exactly. Yeah, the Yale Club's like that too. It's a very monastic.
I had a friend who was working on a novel and decided to like he knew the Jesuit community very well, so he decided to basically cross the country staying at chapter houses.
I asked him. I said, "Well, how long can I stay?" He said, "Well, we had a guy move in during COVID and he never left." So apparently, quite a while. I don't know. Have to wait till the next epidemic, which may not be too long. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, my friend Alex. Thanks to all of you who watch. As I said, every Tuesday, 11 a.m. Pacific. That means you can watch us live. We open up the stream on YouTube for the shows as we're doing them. YouTube.com/twit. And of course, Club Twit members can watch the live stream. They'll see me get up, pour a cup of coffee before Security Now, all that stuff. So join the club, right? That's a turn on. You can get shows after the fact. Download them from the website, twit.tv/mbw. There's also a YouTube channel with all the video of each show, youtube.com/MacBreak Weekly. There's probably the best way is subscribe in your favorite podcast client. And it's fine with me if you use Apple Podcasts. Whatever works for you, just search for MacBreak Weekly and subscribe. And as long as you keep listening, they'll keep downloading. But, you want to listen to every show at your leisure. That's probably the best way to do it. Don't forget the survey, twit.tv/survey24. Just take a couple of minutes. Don't forget to join Club Twit, twit.tv/Club Twit. And I am Leo Laporte. I will see you next week. Be back in the studio for that, I think. Good Lord willing, and the creeks don't rise, although there's some snow on the ground.
There has been some flooding. Don't pull the tiger's tail, Leo. You're leaving. I have to stay here.
The Patuxent River is overflowing its banks, ladies and gentlemen, even as we speak. But I will see you next week. Meanwhile, get back to work. Break time's over. Bye-bye.
Hey there, Scott Wilkinson here. In case you hadn't heard, Home Theater Geeks is back. Each week, I bring you the latest audio-video news, tips and tricks to get the most out of your AV system, product reviews, and more. You can enjoy Home Theater Geeks only if you're a member of Club Twit, which costs $7 a month, or you can subscribe to Home Theater Geeks by itself for only $2.99 a month. I hope you'll join me for a weekly dose of Home Theater Geekitude.